All right, boys and girls, every year my office here adopts a family for Secret Santa, and I never really participate in the shopping of it. I always donate money. Denise, who's actually right behind the camera, she is the rock when it comes to this stuff. She loves shopping when it comes to the Secret Santa and all the family. She actually adopts a few herself. But this year they called me up front and said, hey, there's a kid who's 11 years old and wants to get into some fishing stuff. And so I am the fisherman for the office. So if you're looking for a hunting and fishing video, just go ahead and click off now. I went to the store and bought him a bunch of stuff that he asked for on his list. So I'm gonna be talking to him about that because obviously we can't change numbers. I can't call him up and say, hey, this is why I bought you these things. And this is all Secret Santa, right? So I wanna make this video and pass along the video, and hopefully it gets into his hands so I can explain some of the stuff that I bought him. Now, if you are feeling nice and want to, please leave a comment to any of the advice you could give to an 11-year-old that's learning how to fish. And maybe he's already a great fisherman. I don't know. At first, I think bobbers and worms, but then he started asking for some pretty detailed books. So he asked for some books, he asked for a tackle bag, he asked for some baits, and he also asked for some line. So that's what we're going over today. So buddy, first off, I did get you some books. I think these are the ones you asked for. I went off as close as I could to the list. They're pretty heavy reading, and even for me. So I did get you one fishing book for a kid. I don't know. You might throw this away or whatever, but this is for 8 to 12, and it also goes over some knots and stuff like that. So cool. Anyway, a couple things for you to read. Second, I did get you a tackle bag. I like a tackle bag versus a tackle box because you can have a shoulder strap. You can also change out planos. So you can get a couple different planos. This is, I don't know what series this is, but they'll be like 3,400, 3,600, and they're the different size planos. So you can swap them out depending on what you're fishing for. One thing to keep in mind, don't ever think that because you have a big tackle box, you can catch more fish. What you'll find out is you end up using 4 or 5 baits probably all the time, and they all seem to work. And so I used to have this huge tackle box, and there was like literally 95% of it in there I never touched. And I ended up using, again, 5 baits. And that's anything from freshwater all the way up to saltwater, in my opinion. So that's the tackle bag. Okay, so for your traditional fishing, I got you some bobbers. I don't know where you're at in your skill level. I also got you some bait hooks. So these are pretty big hooks. I have a second pack of hooks somewhere. I think they must have fell out and they're in my truck. They're much smaller, so think worms, bobbers, crickets. You could use small bait fish, stuff like that. But what I like to do as a kid was use bobbers and small hooks and catch small fish. And then I would use another rod. I'd hook them right under their dorsal fin and let them swim around, and we'd catch some really big bass that way. So that's the bait fishing of the side. Now we can get into some other stuff you asked for, which was line. I like braided line. The problem with braided line is you usually use a leader, which is kind of technical. But if you can watch this video on YouTube, you can also watch a video on what's called braid to fluoro knot. So you type in, how do you connect braid line to fluoro line? And you'll find 1,000 videos on there. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. Find one that works for you, and then you can just go from there. So you're gonna wanna use a top shot or leader of fluoro to braid. The reason I like braid is because it's no stretch. So you can literally be fishing 40, 50 feet of water, and you can feel when that fish actually grabs that lure. So it's kind of cool when you're working bottom and stuff like that. This is 15 pound, which I kind of run on everything. And then I change out the leader depending on what I'm fishing for. Now you start talking to these bass guys, they're a whole different breed. They drink, they drive their $100,000 boats with their pinky up kind of thing. They'll have 100 different rods, and one will be set up for top water. And those guys will be running 50, 60 pounds of braid because they're ripping it across lily pads and stuff like that. Just know 15 will work just fine. Just don't do anything too crazy with it. On that note, I got you some braid cutters or scissors. They'll work for braid, fluoro, mono, the whole 9 yards. Braid is kind of a pain in the butt to cut, so you'll need a pair of those. Okay, let's get in some lures. The first thing I got you is some beetle spins or Joe flies, literally just a little spinner. These things will literally catch anything in Virginia. From trout to bass, they're just like an all-time favorite go-to. And now we're gonna work, so that was beetle spins. I got you some topwater lures. This is a popper, and literally you're just gonna toss this out there and pop it. And then this one, you can kind of fish back, and it has a little propeller on the back, and it plop, 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 plop the whole time you're fishing it. One thing to know about that is topwater is usually better like at that early light or that evening bite. So not midday, not when the sun is up at the highest. You can get away with it a little bit longer when it's cloudy days, but typically that morning and evening bite in that summer, spring time frame is gonna be your best topwater bite. So that's topwater. water. Then we have our mid-level, and I heard you had a couple rods, so here's how I would set it up. I would have like a top water, a mid-level, and then something on the bottom. If you have 3 rods, if you don't, literally just keep it simple and use your favorite rod. Doesn't matter. But mid-level, swimming baits, I got these because they're already pre-rigged for you. Bass love anything like this. I like striper, which is a better bass. Large. So here's my scale of bass. Striper or rockfish or striped bass is number 1, followed by smallmouth, and then largemouth's way down at the bottom. They're kind of boring. I got a rattle trap, which is pretty known bait. I don't know. It rattles. You'll hear it, you'll feel it and everything on the rod as you're swimming it back to shore. The spinning bait, which is an all-time favorite too. I bought you a smaller one because my philosophy is small will still catch large fish and they'll also catch small fish, and the goal is to catch fish, right? Now you can get huge ones that guys will fish and they'll have a special rod for them and everything else, but spinning bait's my opinion. Now I also got you a chatterbait. Chatterbait, my buddy Chris is a big fan of chatterbait. That's literally all he'll run. And then he'll use what's called a trailer, and you'll actually fish this through the hook. And so not only will you have the blade of the chatterbait, you'll have the skirt of the chatterbait. You also have this fish profile in the back with the big tail kicking. This is a deadly combination, and I feel like it's warranted. Now, let's say you lose the body of a swimming bait and then you just have your hook, although these are kind of built in. You can always just use a swim bait by itself. I do a lot on the Potomac for saltwater fishing. And then we also have a DT6. I'll be honest, I'm not a crankbait person. There was a professional fisherman at the store. When I had all this in my cart, I said, what else do you think this kid could use? And he was like, oh, they got a good deal on these. And so DT6, I'm assuming that means it dives down to 6 feet deep. It's a crawdad imitation or paint job. Anyway, this thing's gonna rattle and dive down deep. So one thing to keep in mind is you're just not gonna be using this for shallow water fishing. If you're in 3 feet of water, you are gonna be dragging bottom and get caught up. So if you're in deep water, that's good. Fishing around a dam, something like that. And then we're gonna get into your bottom fishing stuff. And this is my favorite bait, hands down. If I had one bait, if I want to fish plastics, is this. It's called a Senko stick bait, something like that. There's a couple different ways to rig it. So I got you hooks that you would just fish through the front. And, again, hopefully you can watch some YouTube videos on this, or maybe they would be in the books. But I also got you this wacky rig hook. And so you'll just literally hook that right through the middle of that right there. And as you throw that out there, you're just gonna let it sink and it's just gonna float like that. And it'll take a minute to get down to the bottom. Typically that fish is gonna hit on that descent or right when it hits the bottom. You're not really fishing that back much. This is an all-time favorite of mine, followed by like your typical Texas rig. So you're gonna put one of these worm hooks on, but before that, you're gonna put some sort of weight on. And that's why I got you these bullet weights, all different shapes and sizes. And so you put a bullet weight, the hook, and then feed your worm on. And this you can work along the bottom. And again, when you're using that braid, you're gonna feel that fish grab that. You're gonna feel like a thump, and you actually start seeing the fish swim around with it and stuff like that. Set hook. All time, just your typical round split shot, another way to add weight. If you're doing that bobber and worm kind of thing, you can do a bobber split shot along with that hook. So bobber, split shot, hook, and then throw your worms out there. And split shot's just a way to get some more casting distance, stuff like that. And then I also got you some crawdad things. This again was the pros recommendation. Out of everything, I thought I did pretty good. I got fishes tournaments and all sorts of stuff. These were his 2 recommendations to add on to it. I've never fished this one, and I've never fished crawdad, but I'm assuming you're gonna rig these the same way as these worms with some sort of weight, hook, and then the bait. You can actually put these as trailers too for like jigs. I do know that much. So anyway, that's gonna wrap up everything I got you. I hope, one, you learn how to fish and you love fishing. Fishing is a great sport to get into. If I'm not here or with my family, I'm gonna be fishing or hunting. That's like simply hands down the way I'm gonna live my life. So fishing's great. I hope you can get into it. I hope you enjoy it. I'm hoping there's some guys on here that aren't tearing me apart for how I just explained all this, because I'm not a professional fisherman, but I'm hoping they're giving some insight as well on what they think you should be doing, giving some guidance there too. So again, buddy, I hope you have a good Christmas, and I hope somewhere I get to hear that you are catching some fish.